Before the heavy shots ever land, David Benavidez is already at work with his lead hand, touching, feinting, and nudging an opponent toward choices that feel safe for only a moment. His feints are not cosmetic, and they are not there to win applause at long range. They function like instructions disguised as questions, and every reaction gives him a cleaner route to real damage. One beat, he lifts the left glove toward the eyes. The next, he drops that same look toward the chest, and each picture triggers a different reflex across the ring. Show high, and many fighters lock into a tight shell that blocks impact but also blocks their own vision. Hint low, and elbows dip, feet pause, and the line upstairs begins to breathe. When opponents think they have recognized the rhythm, Benavidez often changes only timing, angle, or height, then turns their confidence into a trap. That is why his bursts can look sudden while actually being built in plain sight. The finish of an exchange is frequently the last brick in a structure he started assembling 30 seconds earlier. Early in rounds, he gathers data as much as he spends force. He edges into danger range and studies the first instinct that appears under pressure. Does the rear glove parry wide and lift the elbow from the ribs? Does the guard close straight ahead and leave a lane through the center? Does the opponent pull back in a line instead of leaving on an angle? Benavidez stores those answers at full speed, and once he has them, the feint and entry become one motion. He might show the jab to the head and then drive the real jab to sternum, shoulder, or biceps, striking structure rather than chasing a dramatic snap. That bodyline jab matters because it interrupts escape steps and pins posture long enough for the right hand to arrive with balance. From there, his combinations are directional rather than noisy. He is not only throwing to score in the moment, he is punching to rotate shoulders, square hips, and erase the next safe turn. A left hook upstairs may be less about ending the fight instantly and more about occupying the right glove so the following right hand can find the open seam. Then he drops short offense downstairs, bends posture, and keeps the opponent tall near the ropes, exactly where David Benavidez does his most punishing work. This is where his pressure separates from simple volume punching. Plenty of aggressive fighters enter well, then overreach and let the target escape after 2 or 3 shots. Benavidez often seals the exit before the escape even begins. If a man wants to circle left, Benavidez will finish his sequence with a subtle lead foot adjustment that narrows the lane and makes the drift predictable. If the defender ducks right under return fire, he often leaves a short uppercut or cuffing shot near shoulder level, sometimes messy, always disruptive, enough to break balance and restart the sequence. Even his misses tend to fill the space where freedom should have been. That detail creates hesitation, and hesitation is oxygen for Benavidez's offense. People talk about his hand speed, but the quieter key is his position after each punch, because that is what lets his speed survive into late rounds. He does not pause to admire impact. He lands, shifts half a step, and lands again from the panic line he just created. That second and third wave drains opponents psychologically as much as physically. A rival survives the first burst, believes he has bought space, and finds David Benavidez already on the new track, closing it before a full reset can happen. The lead hand starts the conversation, but his feet and shoulders keep it going. There is restraint inside the aggression too. Because the left hand stays active between power shots, he places a visual curtain in front of counters down the middle. A pawing touch can delay a right hand by a fraction, and that fraction often decides whether he gets clipped entering or arrives ready to fire again. He is hittable in spots, but difficult to hit clean when rhythm belongs to him, because opponents are trapped in reaction instead of initiative. Round by round, that reactive burden becomes attacks. Legs tire from constant micro-corrections. Guard discipline erodes under repeated false alarms. Breathing frays when every attempted exit becomes another pocket exchange. By the middle and late stages, Benavidez is not simply throwing more, he is enforcing a system that punishes every defensive choice available. Raise the guard and he digs downstairs. Drop the elbows and he threads shots back upstairs. Slide toward open space and he meets the lane with a finishing punch. That design under his most violent surges often starts almost invisibly, with a lead hand asking a question no one answers correctly for long. What makes David Benavidez especially punishing is that his questions are never neutral. Before the exchange looks dangerous, he has often moved his lead foot outside yours, turned his chest just enough to narrow the clean route, and placed you in a corridor that feels open until you try to run through it. So the first mistake is rarely a dramatic tactical collapse. The first mistake is believing you still control the map. Benavidez keeps redrawing that map with tiny acts that barely register at full speed. A brush of the glove, a shoulder aligned down the center, a half step that steals angle while the crowd watches the hands. That is the hidden machinery of his exit trap. People remember the right hand at the end, but the sequence is usually won before that shot lands. He builds the frame in real time while the opponent is still deciding whether this is pressure or just presence. Watch Benavidez place the lead hand on a guard and leave it there for a beat. It can look casual, almost lazy, but in practice, it is a measuring stick, a blindfold, and a steering wheel at once. He is reading distance, clouding sight lines, and freezing attention high while his feet close range into a zone where retreat becomes expensive. From there, even modest bodywork can change everything. He does not need a highlight reel liver shot to alter posture. A short jab to the sternum, a thump on the near elbow, a straight touch under the guard can interrupt structure, and once structure is interrupted, his combinations stop being separate punches and start behaving like instructions. Pin this arm, lift this guard, delay this hip turn. Now split the middle while the body is still reorganizing. That awkward half second, when a fighter is neither fully shelled nor fully gone, is where Benavidez is most dangerous. When opponents try to answer with counters, he often disarms the attempt with that same lead hand. A quick paw across the front shoulder can stall a right hand before launch. A brief post on the biceps can mute a hook before it gains width. On television, it can look untidy, sometimes accidental, but it is disciplined interference, repeated interference, and it strips rhythm from men who need rhythm to survive. He is not chasing perfect offense in every exchange. He is engineering mutual imperfection and trusting that his structure, pace, and volume win that environment. Most nights, they do. You can feel rounds tilt after one hard sequence. Not because the opponent is finished, but because his reset no longer belongs to him. He circles out, maybe lands something clean, maybe steals a moment, and then Benavidez is in front again, lead shoulder pointed forward, left hand alive, forcing another decision before lungs settle. That constant interruption weighs on the mind. Fighters begin anticipating the trap, and anticipation turns into hesitation. They pause on the ropes a fraction too long. They jab without stepping. They pull straight back with the chin high because the side door feels closed. Now the damage is not only physical, now it is decision paralysis under incoming fire. This is why David Benavidez can look sharper late than many pressure fighters look early. When fatigue dulls foot speed, he does not need to win long chases across open canvas. He manufactures short routes with his lead hand and wins territory in 2-foot installments. Touch and read, feint and freeze, slide left and narrow, jab to the chest and pin. Right hand over the top as the lane collapses. Suddenly space is small again, and the opponent is paying rent just to leave it. Even when the first punch misses, the exit is usually taxed. The defender leaves on compromised balance, or with gloves fixed high, or with feet crossing just enough to make the next wave dangerous. That is the real objective of the trap. Not a guaranteed knockdown on command, but a running debt carried from exchange to exchange until the bill arrives in the championship rounds. By then, you can see it everywhere. In the legs, in slower guard recovery, in shortened pivots, in fading willingness to throw while moving. Benavidez reads that erosion and raises pressure without losing form, still speaking through the same lead hand language he established in minute 1. He feints at the eyes, jabs the chest, steals the lane, and closes the final step with combinations that look furious but remain placed with intent. So when a finish begins to hover, it rarely feels random. It feels structural, like supports giving way after repeated stress on the same fault lines. And the architect of that collapse, again and again, is David Benavidez. He reads a man through first contact, not with raw force, but with timing, pressure, and touch. He taps the gloves and learns whether the shell is disciplined, whether the forearms are anchored, or whether anxiety is making the hands jump before punches are thrown. That small lead hand paw is not decoration. It is reconnaissance. If the guard is hard and static, the body is likely waiting. Once he collects that information, his offense stops resembling a search and starts resembling execution. He shows upstairs, then holds fire for a beat. He lets the opponent spend one flinch at no immediate cost. Then he presents the same picture and steps in behind a chest jab that pins the rear foot and interrupts balance. Now the defender wants to turn out, but the hips are late, and late is dangerous against David Benavidez. That tiny delay is where his best work begins. He does not always need a large wind-up to hurt you. Often it is compact, straight punching first, right hand through center, tight left hook on the guard, then another right as the target tries to square and flee. From far away, it can resemble simple activity. Up close, each shot closes a specific route. The centerline punch stops the lean. The hook occupies the right glove and steals vision. The follow-up straight lands on retreat before posture resets. By the time a clean angle appears, he has stepped with it and made it dirty again. That is why opponents call him suffocating even with visible ring behind them. Space exists in theory, but usable space disappears in practice. He arrives first with his lead side, turning open canvas into dead air and forcing exchanges before a full reset can form. When he sees a mover drifting toward the perimeter, he changes level without changing intent. He shows high, jabs low, and steps his lead foot outside the opponent's lead leg. Not to pose, but to make the exit run directly into his right hand. That is the trap in pure form. He is not guessing where you will leave. He is engineering the options and punishing the one he allows. Even careful defenders get pulled into bad trades because Benavidez layers choices against each other. Keep elbows tight, and he touches upstairs until the guard rises. Raise the guard, and he drills the body line that takes spring from the legs. Fire a counter and his active left interferes just enough to smear timing, dulling first return and giving him the doorway to re-enter. Against him, one good decision rarely saves you. You need several clean decisions in sequence under stress, and his pace is designed to break that sequence before it settles. Then the psychological toll arrives after the technical toll. When fighters cannot leave cleanly, they start punching to buy respect instead of punching with selection. That emotional trait is exactly what Benavidez wants. Rushed answers widen elbows, square stances, and expose the lanes his feints have been requesting all night. Now the surges feel heavier, not only because of force, but because the target is compromised before each exchange starts. Shoulders square, heads lift, feet cross on retreat. At that stage, his combinations stop feeling like separate decisions and feel like one continuous sentence that keeps rewriting the same ending. A frame shot to disrupt, a split shot through center, a hook to close the door, a body touch to bend posture and steal breath, then immediate re-entry before recovery arrives. That interruption of breath is a core part of his punishment. Benavidez is not merely stacking damage. Rounds make his feints harsher because reactions are no longer sharp, only urgent. A veteran may read the cue, but tired legs cannot execute the read. So that is the engine of his pressure. Lead hand questions that are never neutral, exits that are never free. Surges that look explosive because the trap was assembled quietly, touch by touch, long before the crowd recognizes danger. He also reads tension directly through contact, feeling whether a man is loading to spring backward, preparing to pivot off the lead side, or setting a counter over the top. When pressure in the guard turns rigid, he recognizes the shell is about to seal and works around it before the target disappears. When that contact goes suddenly light, he expects movement instead of resistance and steps to the lane rather than lunging at the head. That is one reason his jab lands so often on chest, shoulder, and biceps before the clean headshot arrives. Those are not empty touches. They are structural strikes designed to stall hips, blunt turns, and break the chain between footwork and defense. Once hips and shoulders stop speaking to each other, straight punches start finding upper body space in quick succession. Against polished movers, the pattern becomes clearer. Benavidez gives a fast, high feint, reads the guard rise, then drives long to the body to pin the lead leg. As the opponent scrambles to recover angle, he slides just outside center and sends the right hand through the seam. Panic leaves open. If that right hand skims or misses, he often keeps command anyway. The miss flows into a hook that cuts off spin out and keeps the fight in his geography. He is not wagering everything on one perfect impact. He is building a funnel, and each punch narrows the path. Inside that funnel, every defensive choice carries cost. A tight shell gives up vision. A hard lean back gives up stance integrity. A fast pivot can give up position and walk a fighter toward ropes without him noticing in real time. David Benavidez keeps collecting those concessions until the ring feels smaller than it looked a minute earlier. From a distance, his pace can look reckless because the hands keep moving. Up close, there is clear order. He uses the lead hand to mark distance and cloud the first read. He commits the rear hand when balance is honest and feet are beneath him. Then he punctuates with short hooks that either land clean or hold posture in place for the next line of fire. Even glancing contact works in his favor. He bangs arms in ways that deaden counters, and those collisions accumulate. Shoulders burn, forearms tighten. Guard recovery loses fractions of speed, and fractions are exactly what his rhythm feeds on. By rounds 7, 8, and 9, many opponents are no longer defending punches alone. They are defending changing ideas. A feint that meant body jab early now cues an upstairs touch and a right to the ribs. The same floating left that once set up a straight rear hand can become a long hook when the target slips inside. Benavidez does not need a brand new style each round. He triggers automatic reactions, and automatic reactions are predictable. Predictable responses are punishable when he is standing in front of you with pace. There is a mental squeeze layered over the physical one. When a fighter stops trusting his first read, he holds decisions for half a beat. At Benavidez's tempo, half a beat is a lifetime. If they wait, he is already in range before the answer forms. So the trap is not only ropes and corners, it is decision fatigue. David Benavidez makes opponents spend concentration on every twitch and false start until clean exits feel like guesses. Once guessing enters defense, punishment follows quickly and repeatedly. Watch the end of his surges, and you can usually see the next surge being assembled immediately. He places the lead hand on the guard again and reacquires the line with his front foot. He gives a small shoulder feint that asks a familiar question in a new rhythm. Tired opponents answer as tired opponents do, a little wide, a little late, a little desperate for air. Then the engine climbs again. Frame and disrupt, split through center, close the side door. Touch the body and fold posture. He studies the conversation in your arms before he commits with his fists, touching, posting, and tracing tension in the forearms until he knows whether you will swat, shell, or turn. By the time that intention reaches your shoulders, Benavidez has moved to the next beat, clearing a lane for the jab or pinning the lead glove so your counter must travel the long road home. That tiny delay is where his momentum starts, and it is rarely accidental. Against movers, he uses the lead hand like a traffic barrier, flashing high to lift the eyes, then stepping across the front foot to make the outside lane feel crowded and costly. The opponent still believes the lane exists, takes it a moment late, and runs into a long right hand thrown toward the exit point, not where the head used to be. That is why David Benavidez can look ruthless without looking careless. He is not wasting shots on old coordinates. He is striking where your choices force you to go after the feint has removed easy roads. Many pressure fighters chase retreat with bigger steps and wider swings, and the chase leaves them square, long, and recoverable. Even in loud clusters, structure stays underneath the noise. A chest jab to freeze posture, a right hand to rotate shoulders and lock stance. A left hook that often serves less as a finisher and more as a staple that keeps the guard in place for what follows. Then he returns to the body, because once a fighter is tall and squared, the ribs and solar plexus are easier to find. The separating detail appears right after that body touch. Where others pause to admire damage, David Benavidez exits his own sequence into a new angle of pressure, placing his lead foot near the opponent's lead knee, so escape demands a spin rather than a sprint. A sprint can restore distance. A spin often steals balance. He asks for the spin on purpose, then punishes the posture that follows. Once balance leaks away, defense narrows into bad options: stay high and absorb downstairs, or drop low and surrender the headline. Late in fights, those binary choices are exactly what he wants to manufacture. Fatigue strips imagination before it strips courage. You can watch experienced opponents stop feinting back, stop claiming center with conviction, and start reacting to every twitch from Benavidez as if each one might be true entry. That is the tax collected over time. A feint that only planted doubt in round 3 can become a scoring key in round 9, because legs are heavier from bait. His exits deserve more credit than they usually receive. He does not always leave in straight retreat where counters are easy to time. He often finishes with a subtle shoulder roll or slight drift left, resetting the lead hand like a curtain so return fire crashes into traffic before reaching his chin. Then he is back on the front foot, asking the same tactical question with different cadence. Cadence shifts matter as much as punch selection. He might tap twice, wait a beat, then split the quiet with a hard sternum jab and a fast right over the top. He might show full intensity, then walk 2 beats with only the lead hand speaking, inviting belief that the storm passed before detonating again as soon as the guard loosens. In that sense, David Benavidez controls more than space and contact. He controls expectation, and expectation is where most defensive systems begin. Break expectation often enough, and every defense arrives a fraction too late. When people call him overwhelming, they are naming the visible result. The deeper truth is that he engineers overwhelm piece by piece. He builds it through small touches, repeated looks, foot placements that steal half lanes, and feints that make ordinary exits feel dangerous. By the time the ropes appear, the opponent is not trapped by geography alone. He is trapped by accumulated hesitation, by the growing memory that the first answer kept feeling wrong, and the second answer kept arriving late. Itself, but a disciplined lead hand that keeps presenting the same dilemma in new disguises until composure cracks and the opening stays open.